Lissycasey men and women were members of the 2nd Battalion of Company D, Mid-Clare Brigade of the IRA, and the 2nd Battalion of Cumann na mBan. These men and women played their part in the War of Independence from January 21st, 1919 to July the 11th, 1921. Lissycasey, which is situated on the main road from Ennis to Kilrush, was an ideal central location for the battalions to operate.
We are here in Caharay, which was the location for the ambush in 1920. This is the old school, and I'm joined by local historian and county councillor PJ Kelly, who's going to tell us first of all about the school here in Caharay.
This was the old school in Caharay, known as Fergus View. It was built in 1871 and stayed in being until the mid-60s when a new school was built. Fortunately, Mara and Michael Kelly took it over. Mara's father, I think, renovated it, and is a museum piece today. And it's a pity a lot of the other old schools weren't renovated in the same way. Though it was known locally as Fergus School, Fergus View, it's always referred to now as Caharay School, and in the context of the ambush which took place, it was referred as the Caharay ambush.
And the location for the ambush, PJ, it was an ideal position because it was between Ennis and Kilrush, and it was overlooking the road.
Yeah,
so you might tell us about that.
If you take from Ennis to Loop Head, and you would find the perfect place for an ambush, it was here. You had a high ground to the rear, you had a high ground to the south, you had a bend to the east and a bend to the west, and everything was perfect, if everything went right. And unfortunately, something went wrong.
Right, and tell us about what happened.
Yeah, well, it appears that the local IRA and its associate members in the different companies had British patrols under observation for a while. They were moving to Kilrush in a regular pattern, preceded by armoured cars with a number of lorries of troops, and this appeared to be the spot, and as a result the plan took place. Officers and their commanding officers from as far away as Bearfield, Kilmaley, Crusheen and so on were part of the team which was to take place. And the night before the ambush, the main troop from Crusheen and Kilmaley stayed in Slaveen the night before, and they arrived here at approximately 8 o'clock in the morning to take up their position. Everything was planned to the T, everything was in order. They had it surveyed. Some of them took up positions on the southern side. You had Frank Barrett there on the southern side, you had O'Keefe, and on the northern side here, you had Casey. He had taken over position at the back of the school. Suddenly, something happened. They weren't arriving at the usual time. The scouts were stretched over as far as Dara, sending on signals, and suddenly they arrived, but instead of coming on to the area immediately in front of the school where trenches had been dug and so on, they stopped east of the school, dismounted and hit for the hill to the right of the school. Frank Barrett, who was in the southern hill, immediately saw red because 2 Crosley tenders and a wagon pulled up in front of the school, and of course the temptation was to attack. But Barrett saw the problem that the other soldiers had come in, and that O'Casey and his troop at the back of the school would be attacked. So a diversion had to take place, and some of the British troops at the north of the school were immediately engaged. One of them was shot, which created a good distraction because his relatives, friends had to come to his rescue, and this allowed many of the people, of the volunteers, to escape northwards towards Kilmaley. It was unfortunate it went wrong, but there's always a reason. When they started reviewing the situation, they found out that a local person who was working in the mental hospital and who had been under suspicion had passed by in the early part of the day as the troops took up their position. He was suddenly called upon as Our Ladies, as it was now Our Ladies, who was in the mental hospital, and he was shot, but survived. And he suddenly realised he had a choice of heaven or Holyhead. So he hit for England, never again to return. And it just shows you how a small little bit of betrayal can cause so much problem. It was lucky for the British because of the location. They would have been wiped out. It was perfect.
Now, PJ, the men that were in action here, but the women of Lissycasey and the women of the brigade also played their part in the War of
I
Independence.
should have mentioned that other companies which came to the rescue that day under the previously mentioned people, there was approximately 50 in that group, and they were joined by 20 locally. And coming on here, I think there were approximately 20 in it as well. They played a major role. I was looking up some notices lately, and they're written by my late uncle Sean O'Callaghan, who was Ifigha Golish, or intelligence officer, and Cumann Amon played a major role in providing information, providing intelligence, letting them know what was happening. And of course, because of the nature of intelligence, they were never formally identified as Ifigha Golish. But in another case, they were referred to as Ferin Fifra, inquiring team. So, whilst a lot of emphasis is left on the volunteers, the fear, as they say, Cumann Amon played a massive role, and this was subsequently followed out because soon after the Carray ambush, there was a secret meeting of Clare County Council took place in Lissycasey School, which was, you wouldn't say a great location, because the RIC barracks were quite close. The local national school where the meeting took place was guarded by the local group of IRA men, taking up the position in the fort east of the barrack and in the woodland to the north and to the west of the school. Luckily enough, a member of Cumann Amon, Katie Collins, was cook at the barrack, and I think she provided a certain menu the night before, and the RIC officers were not in a hurry to go walking.
There was a second ambush in the area, PJ, in Decimate.
That's correct, but unfortunately again, things went wrong. The ambush took place at what was then known as Larry McGrath's, subsequently John McGrath's, and it was opposite Lana Cross. And it appears for some strange reason, the Tans who were escorting a mail van didn't take the usual route and upset the whole plans. And Mickey Barrett, God rest him, a brother of Frank's, subsequently a county councillor, did the bravest of the brave things. He drove a horse car across the road to hold up the mail van. And of course the interest in the mail van was there might be letters going to the RIC or checks going to Big Blue, shouldn't get them. But anyhow, the Tans got out, pushed the cart aside and let the mail van through. Now Mickey Barrett, God rest him, was lucky to escape because again, they were outmanoeuvred by accident. Why the British took that from him that day, nobody seems to know, or nobody will ever know. It was totally in contradiction with their normal pattern of movement on the main road. So why the diversion took place, I don't know.
PJ, tell us about the civilians that died in the War of Independence in Lissycasey.
Well, unfortunately we had 3, God rest them, who died. Again, victims of the British military. We had Pat O'Rourke over the road, who was doing his work in his field. The Tans passed by. We can't explain why they did, but they actually shot him. We had the second instance at the church where the Tans arrived, got out of their lorry. A local man by the name of John Conlon panicked. I suppose he got afraid, I don't know. It's very hard to know what happened, but he ran up the hill west of the church. It's now McGrath's field, and he was shot dead there. Very, very sad that it did happen. There is some type of stone memorial there at the moment for him. Then we had Andrew Wren, one of the local Wren families here in lissycasey. He was a civil servant, court clerk down in County Limerick. He was also shot by the British forces, and we're glad that we're able to include our 3 names in this 1916 memorial here in lissycasey. Many of the local IRA units at the time participated in other ambushes, the most notable being in Rouen, Sean Griffin of Carray, Paddy McNamara here of lissycasey, and my uncle Sean participated in the Rouen ambush, collected a few firearm memorials at the time. They were in circulation in the area for quite a while.
The Cascades area of lissycasey is now developed into a local tourist amenity. However, during the War of Independence, the forestry area was used as a hideout by men on the run. Populated by dense trees and foliage, the little stone houses provided shelter while the women of Cumann na mBan supplied food and information.
We are here at the Garden of Remembrance near this beautiful proclamation which is set in stone, and I'm joined by Declan Conway, who is going to tell me about his relations, Sylvester Conway's brothers, who were involved in the War of Independence in 1920.
Yes, and Sylvester's brothers were Ellie and Patrick Barry Conway. Ellie Conway was arrested and he was brought to the Curragh. He was imprisoned in the Curragh, where he lost, by the time he got out, he had 7 stone and weight lost, and he was ungroomed and unnourished while in there before he got back out. And he went on to live in Kildysart. After that, became a school teacher. He was down there, and he was father to Frank Conway, who has wrote many a song since then. His other brother, Patrick Barry Conway, was my grandfather, and coming out from Mass during that time, there was an ambush. They were shot at, and on his fleeing from the church, he was shot on the chest, and he was also shot in the knee. So until the day he died, years later, the bullet in his knee was never taken out. It was there until the day he died. So he was lucky to survive the ambush. So that was the stories of Sylvester's 2 brothers during those times. They offered us their dirty gold, our felons' names to say, and battered us with rifle butts and lonely prison cells. To leave this place of banishment, we'd but one word to say, but sweeter for a felon's life than Ireland's cause betray.
I'd like to introduce you to the Lissycasey Commemorative Garden. And what we have in this garden, we have the engraved replica of the 1916 proclamation, and that's set in granite. We have the school proclamation, and this was done by the staff and pupils of Lissycasey National School to the people of Ireland. The third plaque features a lovely tribute to the 3 men from Lissycasey who died in the 1920 War of Independence. They are Patrick O'Rourke, Andrew Rinn and John Conlon. 7 trees are planted around the garden to represent the 7 signatories of the proclamation. 2 spotlights are concealed in the stone piers at the wheelchair accessible entrance to the garden. They shine on the display and on the national flag, the Clare flag and the Lissycasey flag. And I will end with a quote from John F. Kennedy. "A nation reveals itself not only by the men and women it produces, but by the men and women it honours, the men and women it remembers."
Cumann played a major part in the War of Independence in Ireland. These courageous women were active on the front lines as dispatch carriers, arms smugglers, scouts and intelligence agents, and they also provided food, shelter and care for the men of the IRA. Let us remember 13 Lissycasey women who were members of the 2nd Battalion of Company D, Mid Clare, Cumann. Captain Katie Collins, Decamaid and O'Connell Street, Ennis. Secretary Janie Meany, Cloncolman. Treasurer Deela Hogan, Lissycasey Upper. Teresa Corrie, Decamaid and Lissycasey Upper. Deela Hayes, Decamaid. Mary Kennedy, Cloncolman. Maggie Pender, Briaffa. Janie Burns, Briaffa. Katie Cunningham, Briaffa. Lena Kelly, Frewer and the Irish College, Carrigaholt. Deela McMahon, Glownagoni. Margaret Donlan, Lissycasey and Mullock. And Nurse Mary McMahon, Lissycasey. Ní bheidh a le héad ann arís.